Discover the best in local business news with a subscription to the IBJ and Inside Indiana Business. For a limited time, try us out for just $1 a week for 8 weeks. Claim this limited time offer now at ibj.com/trial offer.
Off the Record with the Indiana 250 is presented by Prolific. When what worked stops working, I point purpose-driven leaders to Prolific, the growth firm. They turn plans into results with full-service marketing and strategy focused on outcomes, not vanity metrics. Head to prolifichq.com to learn more.
I don't think balance has anything actually to do with how many hours you spend. I think it is about alignment of the things on your calendar that are getting your time and energy to your values, who you are, and your priorities, the good you want to do in the world. And I'm like 100% aligned right now.
Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in Indiana. Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in the state. Today, I'm joined by Tiffany Sauder, founder of the Carmel-based marketing agency Element 3 and creator of The Life of And, which Tiffany started in her own words to help ambitious women stop surviving their lives and start designing them. We'll hear and talk a lot more about that here shortly. Tiffany grew up in an entrepreneurial family in Remington, Indiana. She kicked off her business career at the ripe age of 15 years old, when she and her sister started a roadside business selling mulch. That's a dirty business, I know. That business bug led Tiffany to Purdue University, where she earned a degree in business management. After college, she landed a job as a financial analyst at Eli Lilly and Company. But Tiffany yearned to be on her own and her own boss, so she left Lilly and started Element 3 in 2006. Element 3 is a highly decorated marketing agency that works with manufacturers and dealers in the RV, marine, power sports, and commercial vehicles industries to strengthen their dealer programs and drive growth. In 2012, Element 3 won the coveted HubSpot Agency of the Year award. Tiffany says that was the moment she knew her agency was good enough to compete on a national stage. She and her team backed that up. Element 3 subsequently appeared on the Inc. 5000 list of the fastest growing private companies 6 years in a row and boasts an impressive roster of national clients, including Steelcase, Airstream, and Sea Ray. Last year, Tiffany stepped back from her day-to-day role at Element 3, to spend more time on Life of And, a project she started 5 years ago. It offers practical tools for navigating the demanding seasons of life, includes a podcast about ambition, leadership, and the real decisions women face. Tiffany is also founder and owner of Share Your Genius, a podcast production company, a company she started around the same time she launched Life of Ann. Tiffany and her husband have 4 daughters, so it's no surprise that another of her passions is helping kids and young adults. Her board memberships over the years have included College Mentors for Kids, Boys and Girls Club of Zionsville, and the Orr Fellowship, a program for the next generation of Indiana leaders and entrepreneurs. She also served as the first female chapter chair of YPO Indiana, a peer-to-peer CEO organization, and on the board of advisors for Gibson, an employee-owned insurance risk management employee benefits firm. Tiffany is an in-demand public speaker, a seamstress, I understand, an aspiring chef, and she's gotten a little bit better at saying no at least some of the time when things come her way. But I'm glad, as you know, Tiffany, I'm glad that you said yes to being my guest on Off the Record podcast today. So thanks for being here.
Yes, one correction I need to make, and you even gave me a chance to review that. I am not the founder of Share Your Genius. Rachel Downey is.
Okay.
I missed that. I am an investor, and a very proud one at that, helping a young woman grow an amazing company, and she's a big vision around that. So that was my bad. I missed that. So she's the founder.
Well, as you know, this is a podcast about the Indiana 250. It includes members of the Indiana 250. And you're the first member of the Indiana 250 that also has a podcast with us, and I get to interview. So I'm super excited about this conversation. So as I mentioned in the intro, you grew up in a small town in Remington. And I described it as you grew up in an entrepreneurial family. Is that accurate? Did you have entrepreneurial family members that kind of inspired you a little bit when you and your sister were starting that mulch business?
Yeah, I mean, we say it like we started it. My dad voluntold us to do it. So, to be more accurate. Yeah, I mean, I grew up, there was less than 1,200 people in my small town. And my dad farmed when I was little, but then kind of, I think, wasn't as suited for it, and so sold his ground to his brothers and had an uncle that had a pallet business. And so my dad, while I was very young, built what today is the largest pallet manufacturing company east of the Mississippi.
Wow.
But when I was young, we were refilling the pop machine, on the weekends. We were cleaning the toilets after school. We were literally brooming sawdust to clean the shop floor. So I grew up in the very lean, hard work, entrepreneurial years. I'm the oldest of us kids, and my family's gone on to do very well, but that was not the environment that I grew up in. So it was a lot of hard work, a lot of risk. My dad did a lot of different things and has a really high risk tolerance, and so that was super normal to me.
Yeah,
and so that a little bit, I think, not a little bit, a lot of it informed my own journey from an entrepreneurship
so
perspective.
I said the mulch business was kind of a dirty business because, there was a year or two where I tried to do my own mulch at my house.
Yeah.
And I have pretty bad allergies. And as you probably know better than I do, mulch tends to have a lot of mold and other things in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that just about killed me. So did you learn, besides you not probably having that same issue, but what did you learn early on about being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So we would, but just to give you a picture, we would buy semi-loads of mulch from my dad's company. We had to pay the same price that nurseries did. And big semis that have this walking bed would dump a semi-load of mulch on the side of a concrete slab on Highway 24 that my sister and I rented from the guy in town who owned it. So it was very much my dad did not give us the inventory. We were not given the spot by a friend. It was like we had costs. And then we had hours after school where we sat on a lawn chair and we had a sign made at like a sign shop that said $24 for 2 Bobcat scoops of mulch. And my dad's pallet shop was maybe 4 or 5 blocks away from our concrete slab. So after school, we would get dropped off at the pallet shop, is what we called it. And we would drive the Bobcat through the center of town to our little slab of concrete. And we would sit there from 3:30 to 6:30 and sell scoops of mulch for cash.
Yeah.
So we were 2 girls sitting on the side of a highway with a box of cash.
And your dad thought that was just fine.
Amazing. And my sister has less of an embarrassment reflex than me. So I was just mortified that somebody, I'm in a Bobcat driving it through the middle of town every single day after school. So that's what that looked like. And then we were pretty much done by the first week of June, but we would make $3-4 grand, which this was the 90s, kids, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, so you learned early on what it means to be an entrepreneur and out there trying to make it happen.
Yeah, to show up when you didn't want to. When it rained, we had to sit out there. We would be so pissed at my dad.
Yeah.
So
one time.
It was the right thing.
So you end up deciding to go to Purdue and study business, and then you end up what I think for a lot of people is kind of a dream job. You end up at the largest company now, the largest pharmaceutical company in the world and one of the top companies in the world, and you're a financial analyst. And so talk about, landing that job, and was that a dream job for you? And then I know we'll get into, you decided to go off on your own, but first talk about landing that first big job, what that was like.
Yeah, I wanted a big fancy job in a big city. And so, I grew up in a small little town. And so walking into Lily's headquarters and seeing there was like a dry cleaner and a daycare and I could get ice cream anytime. Like, it was just like, you got to be kidding me. This is wild. And I was very proud to get that job. I knew it was super competitive. I was shocked, honestly, that I made it all the way through. And you said in the intro that I wanted to know if my agency could compete on a national stage. I needed to know at 21, can I compete outside of my small little town? And so that was a huge moment of confidence, knowing that there's a lot of really smart kids that apply. And and so I think what I realized is I grew up in this wild entrepreneurial environment where I made decisions all the time. And rightly, when you're at a company like Lilly, they don't let 20-somethings make a lot of choices. It's a regulated environment. There's a lot of risk around it. And I just started to realize like, oh, like I am learning a lot and I am doing something that is interesting, but I could sleep underneath my desk all day and the stock price would be the same. And that insignificance, while the company's amazing and the culture was incredible and I saw people who had made, a lot of money there, I realized it was going to be a long time before I was going to lead. It was going to be a long time before I made a decision of much consequence. And I have since learned and have the vocabulary that I'm very motivated by significance. Like I need to be important to the cause. And so I think my 20-something felt that intuitively. I didn't have the vocabulary for it then, but that was why in that season, a big company was just not a good fit for me.
Yeah. So you stayed 4 years.
Yep.
And at what point did you say, okay, I'm going to jump off and start something of my own? And how did that decision making occur? And what was how did you launch your first company?
I wish I would have journaled it more because, it's like,
yeah.
But what I remember, I was there in that season. It was when Prozac had gone off patent. And so it was not what Lilly is in this moment in time. Where it's like, right. And so it was like, okay, it was kind of like on lockdown, people's options were underwater. And it was just sort of like, if I'm going to leave, now is the time, because I saw the golden handcuffs are a real thing. You stay here 10 years, you're probably here 30, because the engine starts to work around you. Right. And I was being successful in the environment. And I think I had seen enough to be like, I know how to decode environments and figure out how to do the thing. And I was like, okay, this is the moment if I'm really going to do something else to do it.
Yeah. You're don't have too many responsibilities.
No,
maybe
I had
at that
no
point.
Yeah, totally.
And so taking a risk was easier.
Mm-hmm.
You could make the jump. So talk about starting your own agency, your own marketing firm.
So I, through a series of people, met. I did not found it. I purchased. My dad, the financial partner, and me, the sweat equity partner. We purchased a small agency that had been started by a husband and wife here in Indianapolis. Through a series of introductions, met them, and I had just read the book The E-Myth, which is all about someone who's an amazing craftsman gets to the place where they are running a business and they're terrible at that, and the business tanks because they're no longer doing the thing, and the story's about a watchmaker. And I was like, oh, this is playing out right here. And it plays out over and over in the creative industry, where they're an amazing maker, an amazing creator, an amazing designer, writer, developer, whatever the thing is. And they get to the place where they aren't doing that anymore. They're running the business. So I was like, I don't really know that much or actually anything about marketing. But I felt competent in running businesses because we'd been doing it since 15, which is both the same and very different. But I've always been known for an outsized amount of confidence, and that was no different in that season. And so I was like, we should buy this. Like, I think I could probably do some stuff. And my dad, we've already learned his risk tolerance is like, let's give it a shot. You won't know if you don't try.
Right.
So he paid about $30,000 and I gave about all my life, and here we are. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, I know this was the time. Was it a couple of years before the Great Recession? Which of course, I know from talking to people. I wasn't at IBJ at that time, but people pull back. I mean, one of the first things that companies do when it gets really, really tough, and that time got really, really tough, is look at where they can cut spending and marketing, even though it can be really important to not cut. A lot of people realize you've got to cut. So
the economy wasn't moving.
How did you get through that? Was it a tough time? I mean, from all the awards and all the positive things you've done, I'm sure it's not been a straight line trajectory. But talk about managing through that.
It was horrible, and I would say I did a pretty bad job, actually. And I can talk about that more specifically. It was incredible training grounds for navigating COVID. I felt very confident and prepared for, I would say, my second major test as a leader. But I would say I got a pretty solid C- D+ on my first test, which was the recession of 08-09. We bought the company in early 2005, so we were 3-4 years into it, and we had a fair amount of success. We were just under $1 million. We bought it. It was about $300,000 in revenue. We were right about $1 million when the 08-09 recession hit. My husband had left his job at Katz Sapper Miller accounting firm to go raise money from friends and family to start a hedge fund. We had our first baby in 2009. And so, we were sort of maximum leveraged as it relates to having really no secure employment and sort of facing this idea of starting a family. And it was it was terrifying, and I froze. And I have since learned, and I waited too long to make cuts. I waited too long to tell my people. I waited too long to admit to myself what was going on. I waited too long to activate. And I spent, I don't know, probably the better part of 24 months paying back the debt that we accumulated in that season of just freezing.
Wow. Yeah.
And I realized I paid a massive price for that. We were able to hang on to the business, but for all intents and purposes, in 2009, it was probably not financially solvent. It's just hard work kept it together.
Mm-hmm.
Our revenue from December 2008 to January 2009, January was 20% of our December revenue. So it was an absolute cliff. And that was the month I had our daughter. I had her January 15th, 2009. So it was excruciating. I think in that season, I learned I can do really, really hard things and be okay. My husband was going through a ton at that time too. He was very decorated in every aspect of his life. And so putting a bunch of money into the market in that season was
tough,
also really excruciating. And so we were both pretty beat up. And, going through this postpartum, having a baby and figuring out how to assimilate.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah. And well, I'm sure looking back, you also realize, like you just said, that going through tough times makes you stronger. And I'm sure there's a lot that came out of, has made you successful since then that you learned during that time. And I mean, most people say, you learn from your toughest moments. I'm assuming you'd say the same thing.
Yeah, it's very scary. It's very, very scary. And I have learned when you go through really hard things for me, I shorten the horizon of everything. I need to get to lunch. I need to get to the end of the day. I need to get to and that helps me make the next right choice because there's so much unknown, but you still have to move. And I just shorten the horizon of I'm going to make the right decision on the information that I have. And if I get more information, I'll change the choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the velocity by which I now understand I have to move in uncertain times has given me just more choices along the way.
So element 3 is build as a B2B 2X agency. And I know what B2B means, and most of our listeners I'm sure do as well. What's to describe the 2X part?
Yeah. So we're working with either big manufacturers or big dealer groups. So B2B to C would be like Airstream.
Yeah.
Airstream sells to a dealership. The dealership sells to a consumer. B2B to B would be like Steelcase. They sell, Steelcase manufacture it. They sell it to a distributor, essentially a design team, and then it's sold to a business to use it. So what we found is that we've developed a really exciting competency around this really complex transaction that takes place when there is an intermediary, because the manufacturer loses control over, understanding of the actual customer. There's this training that has to happen from the manufacturer to the dealer that's really particular. There's just complexity for the end user of where do I get the information? And as products get more sophisticated, that training becomes even more important for the end user. So that's what that means to us.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So you had a successful company doing well, recovered and doing really well. And then you decided, I'm going to launch something new. That entrepreneur came back. And that's Life of And. And we're very fortunate to have you host the podcast on our podcast network here at IBJ Media. And I know the genesis, the idea of starting it was just because of your life experiences, right? Experience as an executive, a wife, a mom. But talk about how that idea came together to form a company and a podcast and a whole series of programming.
I know. This silly thing it is now. It's not silly. I love it so much. And it really gives me a lot of energy. But I think sort of, I don't know, I am my dad's child in this too, where it's like, yeah, sure, buy it. We'll see what happens. And it's like, it started with a podcast episode. And I, coming out of COVID, I had our fourth daughter, like accidentally. My husband and I were both leading companies through that season. And I think I really held my breath, honestly, because of all that had fallen apart the first time I led through such an acute moment in our global economy. It was like, I knew this was like redemption time. I knew this was go time for myself as a leader to prove that and so I came out of that really tired and kind of disoriented. And I'm a verbal processor, and I had met Rachel Downey through some connections. She was chatting with me about this podcasting thing, and I was in marketing and messaging, and I was like, this is going to be a thing. I just know it. I can feel it in my knower. Every company is going to have a podcast. Talking is usually the most efficient form for a leader to be able to get their thoughts out versus writing. There's much less friction in it. There's this relationship that gets formed when you hear somebody's voice, even if you've never met them. And I was like this, I just know where content's going. And so I wanted to get into the medium out of curiosity. And I had a thing I knew I needed to get out. And so it started out actually being called Scared Confident, because I was really navigating a ton of fear internally. That I think I had suppressed leading through COVID, of being like, I don't have the luxury of being afraid. It's go time. And I know I failed so masterfully the first time. I can't this time. And so that was really bottled up. And the first, I'd say, version of the podcast was that. And then as I spent time on the microphone, started to really understand my experiences and share what it is that I was doing in scaling our home. We've got 4 kids that are, 11 years apart. My husband has a massive job. I have all these wild interests. And I was like, I'm doing things that I didn't realize other people didn't know how to think about. And so, when you run a marketing agency for almost 20 years, you become a professional communicator. You become a professional at making other people understand what's in your head, because you're essentially a consultant as well. And I was like, I think I can teach this. And so I just started trying it, and I got kind of addicted to it. So now, I've been full-time on this for about 18 months, and learning a new industry of being a creator and producing yourself, and understanding not only how to find the message, organize it, format it, teach it, but also market it and share it. And I'm loving it.
And so essentially you started the Life of And that concept and the programming at the same time you're starting a podcasting company. Is that
well,
Rachel
right? Rachel had started the podcasting company a couple years before. She had an investor that helped her get started. And we had both just had babies. We were on a walk in a park, and her investor was wanting to sell his, and he's the majority owner. He was wanting to sell that so that he could do some other things.
Okay.
And she was wanting a partner that knew how to scale a people-driven business and really believed in the medium. And 5 years ago, podcasting was way more niche than it is today. Yeah. And so I was like, I'm in. I was like, how about me? And she's like, really? I was like, yeah. So that was how I got into the podcasting business. I was kind of the business infrastructure for her for a couple of years, but she's always done the sales and done the face, and Rachel's doing a great job with it.
Well, we're going to get a lot more into Life of And right after we take a break from Off the Record podcast with Tiffany Sauder, presented by Prolific, so stay with us. Most organizations hit a point where growth stalls, the message blends in, the site stops converting, the pipeline softens. That's when I tell leaders about Prolific, the growth firm for purpose-driven leaders. Through full-service marketing and strategy, they clarify the story, rebuild your go-to-market, and drive sales. Most importantly, Prolific holds itself accountable to the metrics that matter to you. If you're ready for your next growth stage, learn more about Prolific at prolifichq.com. Welcome back to Off the Record podcast. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, and I'm talking today with Tiffany Sauder, founder of Element 3 Marketing Consultancy and creator of Life of And, a platform aimed at helping successful women handle the many demands on their time. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about Life of And, your company podcast, and your work now, Tiffany, is focused on women, as you describe it, who have chosen to live at the intersection of career and caregiving.
Mhm.
So talk a little bit more about what the sweet spot of your listening audience, your company, the program, like who are you trying to reach?
Yeah. Well, there's a complexity that comes into your life when everything you've said yes to scales at the same time. So if you are, 21, 22 saying yes to a job and you want that to get bigger and more impact, then it's going to grow over the next 20 years. You're going to become a leader. It's going to take more hours. You're going to get on boards. It's going to expand. You're going to have people depending on you. You'll have less control over your time. And
I'm starting to I can identify with everything you just said.
Yes. And if you also, a 22-year-old young woman or young man, want to say yes to a family, biologically, you have to in that same 20 years as a woman. And so all of the things that you're saying yes to personally are also expanding. You figure out how many kids you're going to have. You decide to get pregnant. You understand what that means physically. You go through the postpartum experience, not only with yourself, but with a young baby. You learn how to work sleep deprived. You think every single stage, the next one's going to get a little bit easier, and it doesn't. And so in this 20-year stretch of life that happens to be kind of prime time for both putting yourself in a place where you have earning ability and potential, you put yourself in places where you can have impact, and also feel really confident in the way you're showing up for your family and the people who you would say are your tier one responsibility. The convergence of those things happening in the exact same time. And I say for a woman, it's the same thing for a man, but biologically it has to for us. And so we have defaulted to the recipe being tired, overwhelmed, exhausted, and complaining. And if you have all of those things that I just said and you are feeling that way, then you're doing it right, which is sad. And so I looked at that and I got to that place and I was like, dude, I'm too smart for this. Like, I'm too smart for life to feel this way. I have so much life in me. If I think back to the little girl, teenager version of me, like she was so fun and funny and adventurous and creative and had so much energy for life. Where did she go? And I was hidden underneath a lot of responsibility, a lot of very ordinary tasks that were consuming my mental capacity and my time. And I lost the ability to dream. I lost the ability to wish. I lost the ability to believe that I was going to be a customer of my own time and my money that I was working so hard for until I retired. And my kids are really far apart. I'm going to have a high school, a senior, and a kindergartner next year. And you start to realize I will be probably a grandma before my last one leaves the house. And so it was before Quincy was born, that I started to realize I have to build this differently if I'm going to be visible in our household and in my life. But even having Quincy, I was like, we think the next stage is going to be the one that gives us the time that we want. And we are practicing what we are becoming.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're practicing being tired and overwhelmed and exhausted and reactive and overwhelmed and disconnected, you will become more of that.
Yeah. Well, so talk a little bit about how you go about, I mean, of course you have the podcast, which we love hosting, but talk a little bit about the practical tools, the frameworks that you provide to women for navigating these demanding seasons of life. How does someone get access to your toolkit?
Yeah, if you want how, I have a program. It's called the Life of And program, and you'll probably put links in show notes, or you can go to my website tiffanySauder.com and you'll see the program. And it's the primary activation is a quarterly session where I teach live. And there's 2 dates a quarter, and then you get access on demand if those dates don't work when I'm teaching live. And then there's ways to engage with me through chat. It's a webinar format. I use Elevate Venture Studio, a little plug for them. It's been incredible. We live stream it. The team's incredible over there. And then we have reinforcement. There's tools, discussion guides. You can do it individually or with your team at work if you have an employee resource group or otherwise to plug in. A lot of companies are really enjoying that activation. And then I also have a day-long workshop really targeted towards senior leaders and executives You've got some people who have been through that. And it's like going into the deep end of the Life Van framework. It's a whole day of learning it all. It's like a speed round so that you can kind of see how all the tools work together.
Yeah. So you and I are both members of an organization called YPO, and there's a lot of, and I described it in the opening, there's a lot of peer-to-peer sharing. Does any of the programming that you just mentioned include some kind of peer-to-peer experience or no?
We haven't built that yet. Okay. Candidly, I'll share why. It's because I realize right now anything I build, it's essentially a content mouth I have to feed. And so we are really focusing on the channels we've chosen, getting them to the place where we feel like they're world class, and then increasing the denominator because there are so many places I can activate. And so right now I really want to keep the team very small. I don't want to build a company. I mean, it is a company legally, but so that's why I haven't yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I don't know how to fuel it well.
Yeah. That'll come. I know. So I was reading and prep for today's conversation. I just happened to see one of your tips and identified with it, which was, you get back from spring break and you've got all this laundry, you got everybody's laundry that needs to be done. And you say, why like spend all the time trying to get all this laundry done for everybody? Why don't you just ship it out and have it taken care of and buy back a whole bunch of hours that you otherwise would have spent, doing everybody's laundry. So, do you offer a lot of practical tips like that? And is that something that you focus on, or give us just a feel for that type of stuff?
Yes, that's exactly the kind of thing I would help you see. So what the Life of And kind of has three pieces to it. One is frameworks. Frameworks help us understand. It depersonalizes what it is that we're going through. It's like, oh, I see. When this happens, that happens. And these are really forces of energy. It's not a character flaw you have. It's not that you aren't smart enough or organized enough, because we often can think, if I have a time problem, it's probably a time management problem. So I just need to get more organized. I need to wake up a little bit earlier. I need to have a better plan or a system or read a book. But oftentimes it's just we're literally overcommitted and we don't have clarity about what it is that we actually care most about. Yeah. And so we end up taking on what other people want from us. I think in particular for women, I don't know this is only a female thing, but I think availability can also become a big part of your identity. Where being the one that people call, being the one that's like, you're always on, absolutely, shoot me a text, I'll figure it out. You're the go-to for PTO. You're like the one who everybody can always count on. That person, that dopamine experience can oftentimes be stop showing up for themselves because their time is so committed externally. So that's one part of it. I have some really core frameworks that help you see your life in a way you're like, I understand why it feels this way. The second is helping you understand and put in place systems. How do you make the most ordinary things happen with as little micro-solving and friction as possible? So one silly example is if every household in America ran their dishwasher before they went to bed, every household in America would wake up, unload it, and have an empty dishwasher for the day's dishes. So there would not need to be dishes on the counter. There would not be dishes in the sink. There would not be this like ring of pasta sauce that's been there for 3 days. And this visual clutter that starts to accumulate because you didn't do one thing, which is start the day off with an empty dishwasher.
Yeah.
And the domino effect of now it's backed up. There's too much to go in there. We're going to run it. And it literally the sink is never devoid of dirty dishes.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff takes a lot of energy, actually, because we see clutter. We're like, I got to get to that. That's so annoying. That idiot didn't put the thing in. And when the dishwasher is not consistently dirty, like when the kids don't know the dishwasher is always open for their breakfast dishes, they're not trained to put them in there. That makes sense? Because they're like, I don't know if it's dirty or clean. I'm not going to take a second to look. And so I'm just going to put it in the sink.
Right.
And it sounds so stupid, but it removes so much crap from our countertops.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows when the dishwasher is clean and dirty.
Yeah.
So that kind of very practical things. Or like, if you go on fall break, every fall break, I get my knives sharpened, my windows cleaned, and my carpets cleaned. I need my knives. I cook all the time. But they need to be sharpened once a year. So I send them out when I'm not home. I have a neighbor come over and let the carpet cleaners in because we can't walk on them for 24 hours. Like this stuff that I know needs to be done to sort of keep hygiene in my house. There's a system. I've got a reminder on my calendar. My carpet cleaner knows to call me.
Yeah.
14, the first week of October to get it scheduled. And they are trained to serve me. They're so happy to take my money. And I'm so happy that they help me keep my things going.
So one of the things I said right at the beginning of our conversation was you maybe have learned how to say no. I'm not very good at that. We've talked about this in the past. But I know some women who are really, really good at saying no. And I'm not going to name names here, but some will say, I'm going to prioritize two things, and that's it. It's my family, number one, and work. And then they don't say yes to anything else. You come to them with the board opportunity. No, I'm sorry. Come to them with something else. I can't do it. I'm sorry. These are my priorities. And they're just so good at locked down. And I don't see that with you, though, because you're involved in a lot of different things and you say yes to people and to opportunities. How do we, and a woman who, you're speaking to women about, there's some extra demands often on women, talk about that balance. When do you say yes? When do you say no? And I know it's different for everybody, I'm sure, but talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think everybody's going to decide where their no's come from. When you talk about a woman who has said 100% yes to work and 100% yes to family and sort of no to everything else, I see that as column yes, row no. That makes sense. I'm not going to go wide on anything. I'm going deep. I have said no to a ton of things that you don't see because I enjoy a big denominator. I enjoy cooking. I enjoy altering prom dresses for my girls as friends. I enjoy getting involved in YPO. I enjoy mentoring. I enjoy those things. But I do not do my own laundry. I don't prep my own vegetables and fruit at home. I don't clean my house. We don't touch the outside of our yard. I don't put a nail in the wall. I don't take down my Christmas decorations. I don't take my Christmas cards to the mailbox. I don't or to the post office. There are a ton of things I do not do. Because they add no value to my life. And I have worked really hard to make the money to pay for those things to go away. And I would rather have my house cleaned for a year than buy a $4,000 handbag. I just don't care. I joke. The goal is to have both, not do stuff and have cool things. But my first priority is to not do things. Yeah. And maybe we have lovely things, but you know what I'm saying? And so the stuff I say no to, is stuff you don't see. But another woman may get a lot of satisfaction out of, hey, I really want to do those things inside of the house. And I love to cook. I cook almost every meal for our family, but I don't need to cut the Brussels sprout in half. Yeah. And so I have essentially someone mise en place a lot of our stuff, but I figure out the recipes. I get everything actually made. Yeah.
No, it's it is a struggle for all of us to figure out when you should say yes and when you should say no. And you sometimes only figure out after the fact that you've said yes, just how time consuming it is. It's going to be if you really want to do it well, whether it's a board, whether it's a volunteer opportunity, whether it's saying yes to coach your son's baseball team. Sometimes you don't realize when you say yes how much time is actually going to be.
Yes. Can I say something to that? One of the steps inside of the Life of Ann framework is literally to count the yes, measure the yes, and to not forget about the ancillary minutes. I call them the accessory minutes. So if you're going to do a 30-minute workout, it is probably at best a 48-minute commitment of taking your clothes off, putting your workout clothes on, hanging your stuff back up, filling your water bottle, going down to your basement and doing the thing. Turning on the TV, literally count the minutes that it takes to do a 30-minute workout. And there's a lot of accessory minutes to it, actually. So a board commitment, if you get asked to do something like that or volunteer at PTO or step into literally take 24 hours and call someone who's done the job before and count the number of minutes it's going to take and understand a yes to something is a no to something else. Yeah. 100% of the time.
Yeah. And I think that's an important part you just said, because people don't. I don't think that way, but that's what it is.
And you say no to sleep. You say no to your own functional movement. You say no to quiet time. You say no to not having to multitask everything. That's what happens. The other thing I'll say is I think often we don't understand we can negotiate the conditions of the ask. Here's an example. I was talking to a really successful female commercial broker, and she was asked to be part of this pretty exclusive leadership experience that saying yes was important in the culture of that. And it was designed not necessarily for her life stage or for the fact that she's a pregnant woman, because that's not the majority of commercial real estate brokers. And I said, what would it sound like if you had said, oh my word, thank you so much for this invitation. I'm so flattered. I desperately want to say yes. Here's how I can say yes. And see if there were some of the conditions of like travel and some things that were required that didn't fit her. If you could still say yes without some of those other conditions. And I think we forget that we do have agency in that sometimes.
Yeah.
Or if somebody asks you to be a board, say, I would love to. I can say yes to board commitments that are not, the board meetings can't be after 5 o'clock. So if that works for you, I'd love to say yes. If it doesn't, I totally understand. It just needs to be a no for me right now.
Yeah.
So it's not this unilateral, but having boundaries, understanding what your other commitments need from you,
Right.
and how do you protect those well.
No, it's good. So you've been running Life of Ann for quite some time, and the program. What kind of feedback do you get from people who have participated in the program or they're listening to the podcast? What do you have some success stories that you can share, one or two?
Yeah. I think generally for teams that are going through it, they say this is changing the conversation of how we talk to one another about what's going on in our lives. And to me, that's an important place, because when we say, I'm so tired, I'm so exhausted, I'm so behind, and we say, oh, I know, girl, me too, we're just perpetuating the same insanity. We're not moving one another forward or ourselves. And so changing the conversation is the first piece of saying, hey, if you're feeling overwhelmed, let's talk about how we can define a priority, set a minimum, count the minutes. Like, let's go through and let's start having this vocabulary to move this forward. I've also hear women tell me that putting these simple systems in place has helped them feel less alone in the way that they're running their households. We accidentally hoard information as women. If your wife says, can you please go clean up the kitchen? How do you feel about that ask?
How do I feel about
actually?
it? Well, it depends how tired I am that day.
Yeah, and do you know how to?
And not very well.
Yes, because every time you do it, it's like she goes behind you and does it a little differently, or she's like, seriously, you missed the trash can. Like, we don't articulate, when I'm asking you to clean up the kitchen, this is the 6 things I'd like to have done. And if you do it 80% as good as me, it's done.
Right.
Get over it.
Right.
So we accidentally hoard information. I think putting systems in place has forced women to be explicit, turn their families into feeling like teammates, and not sort of the enemy line. And they're just like enjoying their family more. They're enjoying their choices more, and they're understanding how to say no without it feeling like this militant thing where it's like, I'd love to, but I can't because I've got too much going on and I have to protect my priorities. It's like, no, I joyfully say yes to these things and I joyfully say no to these. Yeah,
that's awesome. So you are, I think, just by virtue of what you're doing, a mentor to a lot of women. And so I'm curious for you, have you had, I'm sure you have had some mentors in your life that have been important to you. I ask all my Indiana 250 guests about who's been important to you as a mentor in your life.
Yeah. Do you want me to say names?
Sure.
Yeah. I think Brian Kavicki has been both a paid and unpaid mentor for me. When I was pregnant with my second daughter, he was just getting started in his career. And he met with me on a cold call. And I was sitting there about 6 months pregnant. And I was kind of in a bad mood meeting with him because I'm like, I don't know who you are. And I somehow had a lapse of judgment and said yes to this meeting. And like, let's just get through this. And I was sharing with him what was going on. And he said, oh, so when your brain thinks when you have babies, bad things happen. And I started bawling. And I was like, okay, apparently, because when I had Aubrey, our first one, it was 2009, the economy fell apart. And I felt like this distraction of having a baby took my capacity from being able to enjoy her, enjoy this moment, be present for my company. And I felt just split in two. Yeah. And I was having Ainsley in a different season in our business, a different economic environment, but I was so afraid. I had to have this baby, but I was so afraid of it. And he saw me in a way that was so human. That was the beginning of what has been I don't know, she's almost 15, almost a 15-year relationship. So his courage to speak truth to me, even when I don't want to hear it. And I can be a very convincing individual. And he has sort of never bought into the shtick. Not that it's, but I'm an influencer by literally design. Like if you go personality profile me, and he has just sort of always stayed. I don't know. He's just been very true to me.
Yeah.
So he's been a huge mentor of mine.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So I mentioned some of the volunteer work that you do with kids, young adults that are early in their careers. Were you impacted by, like, you do work with different organizations I mentioned. Did you have organizations growing up that were impactful to you?
Well, BPA. Do you know what that is?
BPA.
Business Professionals of America.
Okay.
It's like, I don't even know if they have it.
Yeah.
I think they have in schools too.
Is it like a chapter?
Yeah, we had one in my high school, and I got involved in that. They have like competition season and stuff like that. And we went, our little team in our small little school of 72 people in my graduating class, we went to nationals and did really well. And again, I think that was a place where I was like, oh, dude, my brain's good at this. Like, it was a financial analysis was the thing. So we had all these numbers. We had to do math. Then we had to make the story, and then we had to present and explain what we would do into the future based on this historical information. And so I think that like numbers, storytelling intersection started really inside of that event.
That's cool. So I've talked about all the work you do and the companies you've been part of, podcasting, board member, and yet you're still finding time to. You mentioned cooking that you like to do. You talked about even tailoring your own clothes, seamstress. It feels like you've kind of mastered the lessons of that you're teaching in terms of creating more time to do things you enjoy. Would you say you've done that?
Yeah, I do. I feel really centered and peaceful in my choices. I don't think balance has anything actually to do with how many hours you spend. I think it is about alignment of the things on your calendar that are getting your time and energy to your values, who you are, and your priorities, the good you want to do in the world. And I'm like 100% aligned right now. So
awesome.
it starts to become, I think it's like when your body gets healthy. You know, when we've all been in seasons where our bodies weren't very healthy, and you can eat a cheeseburger and actually not feel that bad. But when your body is really healthy and you eat something, you're like, yo, that hit hard. Like, that does not feel good.
Right.
Have you had that experience?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like that. I think when you get into your life of and, you're able to identify more quickly things that don't fit. It's like a little cancer cell where you're like, no, this isn't where I'm going. This isn't, and it's not that I don't have hard days. It's not that things don't take a lot of intention. It's not that. That's never going to be wiggled out of your life. You're an adult.
Sure.
That's part of it.
Right.
But having this just inner clarity and knowing like what's on my calendar is stuff I love.
Yeah.
I definitely have done that.
That's awesome. And now you're teaching it and giving others the benefits of your learnings, which is great. Well, Tiffany, we've made it to Off the Record Speed Round, which is a series of questions I ask all my Indiana 250 guests. So I'm going to start off with your favorite movie.
Good Will Hunting.
Very good. Favorite place to vacation?
The mountains, skiing.
I'm with you on that one. Favorite musical artist?
I have the cheesiest taste in music. I'm like a pop country top 40 kind of girl.
Yeah, that's like big.
I mean,
right
like
now.
Morgan Wallen.
Yeah, that's all the rage
super
right now.
cheesy.
My kids, that's their favorite as well. What's the first thing you do in the morning?
I drink a hot cup of water with lemon, drink a glass or a cup of coffee, and I do my Bible study.
Nice. Title of the last book you read or your favorite book, you choose.
The last book I read, or I'm in the halfway through it, is called Becoming Elizabeth Elliot. So, yeah.
Your favorite sport and favorite sports team?
Anything that my kids have a jersey on.
Nice. Best advice you ever received?
I think it's that I'm a talker. Like I'm a very high quick start, and I love it when words are coming out of my mouth. And Brian Kavicki taught me, people understand what you know, not by what you tell them, but by the quality of the questions you ask.
I like that a lot. Advice to a young person who wants to become a leader, like Tiffany Sauder.
I would say know yourself. spend time knowing who you are and the parts of you that will be unchanging and how to make that into the best version of you so that you can show up effortlessly in who you are for the people you're leading.
Love it. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much for joining me on the Indiana 250 podcast. Thank you for hosting Life of And on the IBJ Media Podcast Network. And thanks for sharing your story with our listeners today.
And thanks for having me, Nate.
Thanks. To learn more about other leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list, go to indiana250.com and look for a Page 2 feature each week in IBJ. We'll be back with the new Indiana 250 off-the-record conversation soon.
From breaking news to in-depth articles, discover the advantage of unlimited access to all news from IBJ and Inside Indiana Business with our limited time trial. Get started now at ibj.com/trial offer.
The IBJ Media Podcast Network is the soundtrack of a growing state. Indiana is on the move, and you can hear it happening on the IBJ Media Podcast Network. We bring you the voices at the center of our economy, our courts, our companies, and our communities. Subscribe now and be part of the conversation that's building Indiana's future. Find all of our shows by searching IBJ Media in your podcast app or visit ibjpodcasts.com.